Welcome to the weekend edition, Hollywood, oh, good grief, Halloween style, for those of you that celebrate Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom
Zoom.
style.
That's my Halloween.
along with along with Lakeena and Lamont, Scott, I am Sydney Brown. Excuse me for the intro, but things are crazy around here, especially in the sports world. We'll get to everything in between in just a moment. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
And you can follow me at Lamont Scott on Facebook, Lamont Scott 69 on Instagram, Lamont Scott 16 on Twitter.
And you can catch this podcast along with the other programming from War Media by searching War on Anchor, wherever you download your podcast, whether it's iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you download your podcast, make sure you search for War on Anchor. And we're also on iHeartRadio. Please download the iHeartRadio app. When you do, please search for War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at War Media. And when you do that on YouTube, you can see our lovely faces doing this podcast. So you know what our pretty intelligent, lovely faces look like. Here we are.
Love it. We got a busy show. We got a busy show today. So, all right, Sid, you start off.
All right. Last Monday night, a big old atomic bomb was dropped on SoFi Stadium, where the Los Angeles Rams defeated the Chicago Bears by the score of 24-10. Last year around this time, the Bears train went off the rails and they finished the season at 8-8. And there was a lot of controversy surrounding that team from a year ago. This year, it looks like the train may be headed downwards in the same direction. Here's a couple of observations. One, Mitchell Trubisky is out. 2, Nick Foles is in. Number 2, head coach Matt Nagy doesn't know how to call plays and get them in on time, which causes Nick Foles to tell ESPN's Brian Griese on the Monday Night Football broadcast that there are communication problems, and so boom goes the dynamite. After the game, Nick Foles was honest and transparent, and Matt Nagy, 40 minutes later following the loss, tried to play PR spin. But as we told you on this program from the start of the season until now, the Bears are not that good. As far as yours truly is concerned, their record stands at 2-5, not 5-2. And with the Saints coming into town on Sunday to take on the Bears in Fox's America's Game of the Week, Bears poop could be at an all-time high. And this year, more than ever, the Chicago Bears season stands at a crossroads. We saw in last year's game against the Saints, without Drew Brees and without Alvin Kamara, the Saints dominated the Bears handily. Now, could this locker room be broken? After the game last year, Khalil Mack left the locker room without speaking to the media. Allen Robinson, the wide receiver, decided to go at a couple of people via the Twitter locally here in Chicago. This year, more is at stake for the Chicago Bears. Head coach Matt Nagy and GM Ryan Pace are facing possible pink slips and link cards. So could the Bears define their season with a big win on Sunday against the Saints, or will this train continue to derail downwards? Lakeena, I will start with you. As we've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I suggested out there, this locker room isn't broken yet, but we're starting to see signs now. Can this season be saved, or are we watching another ship sink slowly before our eyes?
It all depends what happens Sunday. I hate to kind of get it to that particular point, but I think it really is. I mean, if the Bears lose, and if they lose, handily, we may be seeing some infighting. We already saw it. Brian Griese brought it up. I mean, look, he knows how it is to have miscommunications, with the Bears, OC and everything else, revisionist history. But I was making a point here. But look, penalties, lack of, good play calling, and just all that started to kind of just manifest. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it since it was a Monday night game, but it all Look, unfortunately, the nation saw what we've been saying for like almost over a month now. This team is not that good, unfortunately, folks. I'm sorry to say it, but the defense was good, but they had too many penalties. Akeem Hicks, I mean, my goodness, he had like 3 or 4 penalties by himself. And, also the offense, everything's all, discombobulated. And then A-Rob might be out because of concussion protocols. And now Mac might be out because of the knee. And Cody Whitehair, who was probably the most decent, O-line guy they have, he may not play either. Yeah. So everything's sort of starting to manifest for the Bears, and I just want to apologize to the rest of the nation just in case they stink again. I'm just I'm doing a preemptive strike here.
Hashtag Bears poop.
I like that. Bears poop. I like that. Let's get that trending.
That's our thing. Yeah, that's our theme for today's show.
The theme for this week. Go ahead, Lamont.
No, everything y'all saying is correct. It's very correct. As far as being off the rails, I wouldn't say that to after this stretch of games are over, and then we could say officially it's off the rails. But we still got these next 3 games we need to see what's going to happen in, because, the Bears have a way of getting lucky sometimes, and they may go 2-2 in this 4-game stretch, and they may show up and show out and still be looking okay. Now, back to the real problem, Matt Nagy and his play calling. That may explain why Akeem Hicks was making so many mistakes. Yes, one plays offense, one plays defense. But when your frustration level is so big on one side, you tend to do dumb stuff on the other side. Kind of like if you're driving home and you're thinking about the kids at home and they just broke something. You may speed a little bit, or you may run past a person on the expressway because you're going home to beat the kids from what they were doing. So I think that may have been the feeling Akeem Hicks was having when he was making all of those mistakes, because that's not him. He don't use stuff like that. So his mind was so focused on the mistakes that the offense was making. You got to realize that defense did everything they could to keep them in that game, and they could have still won the game if they would have just played a little bit. And goes back to what you said, Sid, Matt Nagy and his play calling. I'm really starting to question his play calling, really. I remember talking on the show with Paul last year. Last year I thought he was Mitch's problem with the play calling. I was thinking Mitch may not be that bad. It's just the plays that he's calling don't agree with the skill set that he has. So that's why it may be a Matt Nagy problem. And if he's not willing to turn those play calling duties over after the halfway point, yeah, it could be bad and it could be long. And like I say, overall, that offensive line, like you said, that was Aaron Donald. I know Leonard Floyd is very excited. He had a chance to beat up on the Bears. I know he's real good. But a couple of bright spots, Moody was killing Jalen Ramsey over there. They just couldn't get him the ball. He had him beat at 3 times. So, I mean, we may have a future over there. We may have a long shot and a threat over there. They just got to identify it and be able to go to it quicker. So, I mean, it was a couple of bright spots. The defense still overall was a bright spot, so to speak. But, it may not be completely over yet. We'll have to see after this. As y'all know, this game coming up is my sit-out game. So, I won't be making a pick. And it's we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll get to those NFL picks later as you're listening to Second City Sports Zoom Style, the weekend edition, along with Lakeena and Lamont Scott. I am Sidney Brown. As we review the Bears' loss to the Los Angeles Rams on last Monday night, 24-10, and we'll preview the game against the Saints with our guest, Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints podcast, coming up in a few minutes. To piggyback off your points, Lamont, Matt Nagy and his play calling, we all know it's been terrible. This is year number 3 for him, and there's no excuse. I know this is his first go-around as an NFL head coach, but there's no excuse for what's been happening right now. In particular, your first drive of every ball game, the first 15 plays at least are scripted. You had to waste a timeout because you can't get the plays in on time. Nick Foles, I do not blame him for saying it, although he did say it in confidence to Brian Griese on the telecast. Nick Foles is correct. If you are NFL head coach, you cannot do that. There is no excuse for that. We saw that on Monday night. We saw it last week at Carolina. We've been seeing this all season, and there's been a problem with him doing it at points last year. So that issue has to be corrected. Number two, the offensive line. We gave them props early in the season, especially when they committed to running the ball a little bit more. You saw that at the Lions, of course, against the Giants in their home opener. But this offensive line now with rapid by injuries, they since Nick Foles been in there, it's been more pass play calls than run calls. They know how to pass block, but they forgot to know how to do run blocking, and that's mostly because of the head coach as well. So that's issue number two. Issue number three, and hopefully we can bring this up with Ross later, but Ted Ginn Jr., he is wasting a roster spot. What is he doing back there returning punts?
Sid, I don't think he could have did much with them, Sid. Buddy was kicking his butt off, but I don't think he could have did much with them. Even if he would have caught one of them five, he would have lit up. He would have got lit up. I mean, dude was kicking out the building, man. Like
Johnny Hecker of the Rams.
Yeah, you had to get that brother MVP. He was the MVP of that game. I mean, he never had a shot. So I wouldn't put so much on Ginn until he at least attempt to run two back like next week after. And maybe it's because it's the Saints. That's his old team. He may want to run through them. So I would say judge him after this game, and then we'll talk about that roster spot. But as you just said, that play calling, man, that's that may be a big problem. That may be a bigger problem than what we want to see or admit to being in Chicago media. But somebody needs to question him on it. And like you mentioned, that timeout situation, he blamed it on the running back. He said, well, the running back was out of place, and I didn't want him to get blowed up, so I'm in there protecting my team. So you protecting your team or your job, bro? So it's interesting, bro. It's real interesting.
Well, Hecker has been to 4 Pro Bowls, so he was actually a bigger factor than I think anybody thought that he would be. And you're right, Lamont, he did pin them back. But again, he actually had a couple of chances to catch the ball. He didn't do that. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in this game today on Sunday night. But I just find it unfortunate that, people are seeing what we've been seeing for like the last month and a half. Like I said, like we've been saying. This team's not that good. Yes, the defense is good, but they're having injury issues. The offense is already having issues, with the play calling and with injuries now too. So it's all starting to catch up to the Bears. And okay, yeah, they can still probably, pull off and win these next couple of games, whatever. But it's not the old saying you are what your record says it is. You may be all a mirage. We've been telling you that this 5-2, well 5-3 now, well 5-2 I should say, but it's a mirage. So I know people say they would rather be like the worst 5-2 instead of the best 2-5 or 1-6. But again, your flaws are showing. And now the sad part is now the rest of the nation is seeing your flaws. So, and now, the Bears going to have a couple more nationally televised games. So unfortunately they're going to see that, okay, you know what? Maybe people may have been on to something. Maybe this team's not that good. But again, we'll see once they play the games.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and a lot gonna show Sunday, man. Like a lot gonna show Sunday. It's my game. It's my game of the year. It's my Super Bowl. So a lot gonna show Sunday, and we gonna come out on the bad end. But I do think it all starts with the coach, man. Like I'm really starting to think that he may be the reason Mitch Trubisky is a bust. It may be all him.
Taking a look at some of the ugly statistics from Monday night's loss last Monday at Los Angeles for Chicago. Nick Foles was 28 for 40 for 261 yards and 2 interceptions, including 1 in the red zone early in the game. Rushing yards, David Montgomery, 14 carries for 48 yards. Cordell Patterson, I swear, if I see Matt Nagy use him one more time for his traditional 2 carries, I'm going to bleep and scream. He had 3 carries for 1 yard. As far as receiving is concerned, Allen Robinson had 4 catches for 70 yards. Cole Kmet, 2 catches for 45 yards, including his longest catch for 38 yards. Jimmy Graham had 5 catches for 31 yards. Anthony Miller, who's had a disappointing stretch the last couple of weeks, 3 catches for 20 yards. And we have Darnell Mooney, as Lamont mentioned earlier, 3 catches for 40 yards. He could have had a bigger impact, but your quarterback couldn't get the ball to him. So there you go with that. So as far as sacks are concerned, Khalil Mack was currently on the injury report as of this podcast, as Lakeena mentioned. He had 1 sack. That was it. I do not blame the Bears defense for last Monday night's loss. It was all on the offense. They only scored 3 points. Thank goodness for Eddie Jackson, who picked up the loose ball on the fumble to score the only touchdown in the game for Chicago. But people want to be mad at the defense. That's fine. But as we warned you for the last couple of weeks, basically all season, the Bears defense cannot carry you. We saw that 2 years ago. It bit you in the you-know-what against Philadelphia in the playoffs. We saw this last year. Where did it end up? An 8-8 record. Now we're starting to see what's happening again this year, and this offense has to be better. They are ranked, as I said last week, third worst to the very bottom in the league in all important offensive statistics. This cannot happen. This must stop, and with a tough schedule coming up, this has to get turned around quickly, or this ship will be sinking. Now, real quick, before I go back to you, Lakeena Lamont, I just want to piggyback off your point about Mitchell Trubisky. I had someone make a weird prediction to me yesterday, and this person said that Mitchell Trubisky may be back in there in a couple. See that it's about PR, and I guarantee you this: if that were to happen, this season is over, and Matt Nagy and Brian Pace will lose their jobs. I just don't see that happening, barring injury. So that's why I told the guys that all of them will be gone by season's end anyway if they don't make the playoffs. But I just don't see them switching to Mitch now. They already have egg written all over their faces. I think this is Foles' team, barring injury, until this season is over, even if he plays bad. It's sad to say, but it's true. They really do not want Mitch in there. So I just want to end this part on that note.
And to go with what you said, I like I said, I don't think it's so much as Nick Foles even playing as bad as people say. I think it's the plays that's being called for him. I mean, look at that 4th-and-1 play to Cordell Patterson, and you might as well scream. You said you're gonna scream if they give him 2 carries again. That's what he's gonna do. So you might as well
Oh my gosh.
That way, you got it out your system. But that's what I'm saying about his play calling. Like, you look at his play calling, and it's scary because you get to thinking, we ain't had a play caller that was good since Eric Kramer days or something like that. I mean, what's going on? Like, it's starting to be real obvious that he need to, like, get him a true play caller in there, man. And he may have ruined Mitch, man. And so, since they all might be gone, like you say, I don't see him getting back in there neither. But what's the point anyway if you mess the man's head up?
It's interesting, though. I know who you're talking about, Sid, that told you that. But I just think that, you know what, I'm sure they would have made the move in the Rams game, I believe. Look, I don't think Mitch is going to get back in there unless, Foles gets hurt. That's the only way he gets back in there, and I don't see it happening. They are already looking silly because they see what Mahomes is doing. They see what Deshaun Watson is doing without a lot of help. You made a mistake, a big mistake, and you may have set your franchise back a few years. So that's the thing that the Bears, owners are going to have to live with that. Now, as far as everything else is concerned, the play calling, I mean, look, we saw what happened the first year of Nagy's system. It was fresh. It was new. Well, maybe not fresh, but it was new. He dazzled everybody. He dazzled Bears fans. But the problem is now defense is starting to catch up to them. Defense sees what you're seeing. And, Leonard Floyd, I mean, the Leonard Floyd revenge game, as I call it, he probably knew, like, he was, oh, Lord. You saw how happy he was when he sacked Foles. Those two times he sacked him. I mean, he was like, yep, he was dancing. He was like, yeah, like, y'all really thought y'all were going to get that over me. And we all know Aaron Donald was going to do his thing. So I just think that at this point, I don't think it's just really Nagy's play calling. I just think that because his system is just sort of, I don't want to say out of touch, but I think people, the league's caught up to him now. So it's not, sort of nuance or sort of a Renaissance sort of thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of over Matt Nagy right now, to be honest with you. And then it's like he kind of want to pass the buck all the time. I mean, you see that press conference directly afterwards. You see how he be answering. You see how he be talking. I mean, he's. I mean, if he's a master motivator, he's not really showing it right now. And the whole Brian Greasy thing, I heard Sid mention it earlier. Yes, Trubisky probably told him that in confidence, but he told him that for a reason. I mean, Foles, I'm sorry, told him that for a reason. Because it probably is coming in too late. It probably is not on him. And he like, man, before y'all can't get me another contract somewhere else, I'm going to let y'all know it wasn't my fault. It was Buddy on the sideline sending it to me late.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been a couple of years ago. He wanted another contract. So he's like, man, they ain't on me, man. So it's going to be interesting Sunday evening, and we got top billing. So, yeah, I mean, I can't wait till Sunday hit.
Oh, you're okay. Listen to Second City Sports Zoom style, along with myself, like with Lamont Scott and Sidney Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. I mean,
Rams defense statistics. Aaron Donald 1 sack. Leonard Floyd 2 sacks. Aaron Donald didn't. Lakeena. Aaron Donald just crawled on his knee.
All right, we get having some problem with Sid's signal, but yeah, and Aaron Donald, we got him back. Aaron, we were just talking about Aaron Donald. Sid, go ahead, finish your points.
I was just saying that Leonard Floyd, former Bear, as Lamont mentioned, had 2 sacks. Aaron Donald was credited with a half a sack. Aaron Donald didn't need to get through that Bears offensive line. He could have crawled on his hands and knees to sack Nick Foles for all I care. That's what I saw.
I got a quick Aaron Donald comment. I was watching the game with my mother, right? And because she was really watching to see was Lamar Jackson playing. So she fell in love with Lamar Jackson. So that's a side. But she was like, who is that 99? She was like, I like him. She was like, he just pushed everybody out the way and just go hit him. I was like, pretty much. She's like, he hit him, and she's like, he just throwing the people around. She was like, they need to put like 2 people on him. I was like, Mom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was interesting. And she watched the whole game too. I was like, oh, you watched the whole massacre. So that was
yeah, bless your mother. Yeah, bless your mother, Lamont. Hopefully the Bears can hire her as a consultant.
Man, they need to do something because but I'm really starting to think it's all the coach, man. Like, I mean, he was flying that first play. It's kind of like, you hate to like bring in a baseball reference right now, but you know how a player come in and he's hitting home runs all over the place, and then they throw him a curveball or a slider, or they throw it outside and down, and he go like he bet 108 for like 2 months until he really, yeah. I think Matt Nagy is in his curveball stages of the NFL right now, and I don't know if he knows how to bounce back. I mean, I pray that he does because he needs a livelihood also. But I think he's in that curveball section right now, and he can't hit the curve that every team seems to be throwing at his offense. So we're going to see.
Yeah, let's talk about the game, against the Saints coming up this Sunday as we await Ross of Lockdown Saints. The Saints have been sort of, I don't want to say I guess you could say they're kind of underachieving, even though they're 4-2. They've had some injury issues and everything else has been going on. Their defense, it's not like they have a bunch of no-name guys on defense. I mean, you got Cam Jordan, who's been to multiple Pro Bowls. You got Malcolm Jenkins, who's a veteran. I mean, and also Janoris Jenkins, no relation. Demario Davis. I mean, it's not, and Marshawn Lattimore. It's not that these guys are some of these guys went to multiple Pro Bowls. I mean, what the heck is going on with the Saints defense? I mean, they're not, they haven't, achieved as well.
They getting ate up. I mean, it's funny. If it's like literally when it comes to these teams, I'm literally like right there. Like, I love them both equally the same. I like don't even pick a winner or none of that. So I watch them just as hard. Like every game they play, I watch every play of their game just like I watch every play of the Bears game. But yeah, the defense has been getting chewed up. And earlier in the season, I was thinking about asking Ross about it. I was thinking, did Drew Brees lose some of the locker room back when he made those comments at the beginning of the season. So I was thinking, had he lost some of the locker room or some of the team, and that's why they've been kind of, as you mentioned, Lakeena, underachieving right now. So I was kind of curious about that, and maybe did he know or hear anything down there? Because I haven't made it down there yet to talk to different people, but that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. So, but I was wondering, has that happened with the Saints? So, I mean, I'm just as worried about them as I am about the Bears.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lamont Scott and Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. As we preview this Sunday's contest in the NFL between the Chicago Bears and the New Orleans Saints. You can watch that game on Fox at 3:25 p.m. as part of America's Game of the Week. Previewing that game, Lamont, I want to piggyback off your point about the Saints defense. Hopefully we'll have our guest on in a few minutes. Watching that game last week against the Carolina Panthers, that Saints secondary has not been good this year. They've been inconsistent at best. And Teddy Bridgewater had a great game last Sunday, passing for 2 touchdowns, and he passed close to 300 yards, not quite, but 254 and 2 touchdown passes. He took advantage of a couple broken plays down in coverage that the Saints secondary, they was just lost out there during the majority of that game. But their run defense was good. They kept Mike Davis to only 7 carries and 14 yards, and so their run defense was good there. But that secondary is not good. If the Bears can form any type of consistency in the passing game, the Bears should be able to take care of that Saints secondary. They should be able to take advantage of it. But based on the way they've been playing, especially last Monday night, I don't think it's possible. But that's just me. It's a week-to-week league, and hopefully the Bears can get it together to take advantage of that poor secondary of the Saints.
And in defense of the secondary, Sid, they've been like not on the injury list, so to speak, but nicked up, and they've been playing a little slow. You know what I'm saying? They've been dealing with little nagging type injuries and dealing with a little slowness. That's what's been going on with that secondary. But I mean, I don't think it's something where the Bears could just take advantage of them and of the situation. I don't see the Bears being that dominant of an offense to take advantage of them, even though they have been a little nicked and injured. I don't see the Bears offense being competent enough right now to take advantage of that Saints slower secondary. Because like I said, they've been playing a little slower, and the offensive line, like you mentioned, will have to deal with Cam Jordan. So it's definitely going to be something worth watching.
Yeah, they're a little nicked up on offense too. Michael Thomas is struggling with a hamstring injury. He's now questionable. Their center is also questionable. I think he's got an ankle injury. So they've got a little bit of some injury issues there on their offense too. But it's going to be very interesting to see if the Bears defense can take advantage of that. So we'll see.
That's why I think the Bears need to win that game. They got to win that game on the front line. Like they got the Akeem Hicks, the Roy Robinson, and Khalil Mack needs to win that game. I think that whole game surrounds around that whole little front right there. And we're going to need to play out the secondary from our other safety. We need him to catch the ball, not hit the ball. Mm-hmm. And that may help us, and that may help us. It's funny, another mama thing. She was like, why he just didn't use 2 hands? Why he punching the ball? I was like, look, man. I was like, no, I mean, I'm not watching the game with you no more because you got too many questions. But yeah, I mean, the Bears, they would need to win it up front. To win that, they're going to have to win it up front with 1 play in the back. They only going to need 1 play in the back, but it's going to have to come because he's going to be taking shots.
Yeah, speaking of in the trenches, Lamont, if you guys remember last year's game, as I referenced to in the open, Alvin Kamara, the Saints running back, did not play in the game in Soldier Field last year. It was Latavius Murray. He ran all over that Bears defense for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Of course, that started the stretch of Hakeem Hicks missing all those games for the Bears last year to get injured against the Raiders in London. Kamara ran the ball 14 times for 83 yards last week. Latavius Murray had 11 carries for 47 yards in their victory over the Carolina Panthers last week. I think it's going to come down to the run defense, and the Bears defense is going to have to step up big time because the Saints will be bringing all that heat, whether Michael Thomas plays or not. Their running game, they're going to have to lean on Alvin Kamara. He was basically their workhorse last week, looking at that game closely with their victory over Carolina. I know Drew Brees passed for over 287 yards and a couple of touchdown passes, but for them, it starts up with their running game with Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just give Kamara the ball a little bit more, because the Bears defense have shown that they have a hard time slowing it down, and they've faced some, I don't want to say average, I don't want to give them say it's a fluke, but yeah, I mean, they give up a lot of rushing yards to some of the running backs. You can imagine what's going to happen if they face one of their top running backs in the league. Kamara might run through that Bears front seven. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
And then they're going to sneak them out behind them for a screen, and it's going to burn them for about 50. I'm telling you that early. They're going to stick them for a screen for 50. Remember, I put that out there early. I probably shouldn't have told Chicago fans and media that. Because I know Nagy and them listening to us. So watch that screen go for 50.
Yeah, look, don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a couple of 50-yarders because he's just that fast. But and also, especially if Mac isn't able to play because of that knee injury, we'll see what happens. If Eddie Jackson. But although I think I saw somewhere that he did practice yesterday. But
happened on that play, right? That was supposed to have been called dead. Where he pushed 7 people to the goal line.
Yep, apparently that's where it happened. That's when it happened, and he was actually limping. Mac was actually limping after that. Yep. I think the Monday night guys noticed it. So, don't be surprised if Mac's not able to play this weekend.
Yeah.
All right, as we wait for our guest once again, Ross Jackson, we'll do a little more, breakdowns of the Bears game, if the Bears Saints game. If not, we'll just do our picks.
That, like I say, with that Bears Saints game, I know when I sent you my picks, you probably noticed that it wasn't a pick on that one.
No, you didn't. You did not have your pick on there, Lamont.
It'll never be. It'll never be.
But you're gonna have to make one.
You're gonna have to make one, Lamont. You're gonna have to.
I was gonna ask you to look at the standings and see what one game cost me my season, because like literally, I actually literally love them the exact same. But if I'm forced to, I will by the end of the day.
At the end of the day, he says. Well, actually, you know what? Actually, Sid actually gained a couple of games, so he's actually ahead by 3 games. But the good news is, that you will have a chance to look. We're all within like 4 or 5 games, so we'll all have a chance to catch up. So don't feel bad, Lamont.
That's true. It's not over yet.
We're not even halfway through the season yet, so you listen. There's time for us to catch up.
Our picks gonna completely differ this week. And that even like with that game last night, that was crazy. That was crazy last night.
Let's talk a little bit about that game on Thursday night. I mean, look, Atlanta actually held on. Yay! I mean, woohoo! Congratulations!
Yay.
Woohoo!
Atlanta just may be back. You got to realize without a and I don't know what Todd Gurley was thinking about Sunday, but without that play Sunday, that would have been another win also. So that would be like 3 in a row. So Atlanta just may be on the way back. And with the coaching change, which was sorely needed, they just may be on the way back. I said it early, they wasn't a bad team. They have too much talent at wide receiver and tight end to be losing like that. And they have a world-class quarterback. So Atlanta just may have turned the corner now that they've gotten rid of the coach and got that up out their system. I mean, that was Todd Gurley's loss Sunday. I mean, you can't put that on. No, that was his law. I don't care if they say, well, the team let him. No, you didn't have to lose that game. If he would have
Yeah, just looking at the stats from Thursday night's game, the first game for Week 8 in the National Football League. Of course, Atlanta defeated Carolina 25-17. Matt Ryan passed for 281 yards. He did throw an interception. He was sacked twice, but they were picked up by a committee in the running game. Brian Hill with 11 carries for 55 yards. Todd Gurley, as you mentioned, Lamont, 18 carries, 46 yards, but he did score a touchdown. Matt Ryan had a touchdown in there, a rushing touchdown in there as well. Julio Jones had a big game with 7 catches for 137 yards. Hayden Hurst, their tight end, 5 catches for 54 yards. So, Calvin really didn't have a great game, but he still came up big with 3 catches for 42 yards.
They took him out like second quarter. He got hurt in the second quarter, so he didn't play the second half. So that's why his numbers probably wasn't as thick as they should have been. But going forward, I think they may have turned the corner with their coaching change, man. I mean, what his record to be with the coaching change? 3-1 if they wouldn't have lost that Gurley game. So
yeah, it would have been 3-0, but now they're 2-1 since the coaching change.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so, and you know, that he may have found what they needed, a coaching change. So,
you feel for Carolina, too. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater got banged up, you know, with that hard hit by hair. But, yeah, I mean, he's not going to get suspended. They already said that. And I think he might get fined. So, he did get ejected, Charles Harrell, with that hit on Teddy Bridgewater. So, he got banged up. They had to bring on P.J. Walker from Temple. Did very well. They had a great career at Temple. So, what a way to come. What a way to come into your first game, right? On Thursday night in front of millions of people watching. Oh, boy.
Yeah, he came from that XFL. He came from
yes, he did.
XFL. So,
yes, he did.
I was rooting. That was their MVP.
Yes, yeah.
So, I was definitely rooting for him because, you know, I was an XFL fan because of where they come from. You know, I ride with WWE. So, yeah, I mean, I was rooting for him when he hit the field, actually, the whole time. But Atlanta might have turned some corners, man. I mean, I really think they got a little too much talent down there on offense to be losing so much.
All right, Lakeena, let's call an audible here as hopefully we get we'll wait our guests. Hopefully, let's do our NFL picks real quick for Week 8.
I'm way ahead of you.
All right.
Way ahead of you. All right, and just for real purposes, fancy purposes, Arizona, Washington, Jacksonville, and Houston are all on bye. So if you have Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, if you have the Washington defense, and if you have, well, I don't know who in Jacksonville, but also if you have Deshaun Watson. Yeah. Well, if you have Deshaun Watson or the Houston defense, you know, you make sure to bench them for all your fantasy players. So, on that note,
first game of the day was the Indianapolis and Detroit.
Yeah, we can start with that.
Yeah, Lamont, you go ahead and start it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, Indianapolis and Detroit. Detroit got lucky. I think Indianapolis will bounce back and beat up Detroit. I think they gonna beat up on Matthew Stafford. I think Indianapolis has gotten an ugly taste in their mouth the last couple of weeks. I think the disrespect that they've been getting is just worldwide now, and they gonna get all of their respect back in that game. I think they're gonna get it all back in that one to win that game.
So you pick Indy, right?
I picked Indy. Yeah, no, I had lost you on the screen. That's why I was trying to see what happened.
Well,
you back now. I think you coming back now.
Here we are. All right. So so you pick Indy, right?
I'm going. Yep, I'm going Indianapolis.
Colts for me.
Same here, Colts. All right, a big one here in the AFC North. You got the undefeated Steelers and the 5-1 Baltimore Ravens. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a lot of fun. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised it's one of those like 6-3, 9-6, or games like that. I'm going to get the edge to Baltimore because they just got off a bye, and the Steelers did not get they didn't get any favors by not having to face Baltimore now on a bye. They had a hard-fought win against the Titans. Probably should have lost that game. I think John Harbaugh will have his guys ready, and like I said, don't be surprised it's one of those comes down to field goals. And with all that said, I'm picking Baltimore.
Well,
I'm going with Pittsburgh on the road, and I'll be watching this game via my computer.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Is that game that they're not? That's not their game on TV this week.
No, not for Chicago.
Not for your viewers in Chicago, no.
No.
Okay, I have to pull that one up then, because my mother already asked me when do he play again. So I'm going with Pittsburgh though, also because I don't think Pittsburgh feel like they ain't got no respect. Don't nobody respect them. Everybody dropping them way below Green Bay, below Tampa Bay, below Tennessee. Pittsburgh feel like how we ain't getting no respect and ain't nobody beat us. So I think this their respect game, and they gonna get it.
All right, a potentially intriguing one here. You got the Rams and the Dolphins. Yeah, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah,
one, right? Yeah.
No, it ain't. I feel bad for the kid. Why would you throw him out there against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in his first game? Why? This is not Alabama, brother, and he will see. And I don't believe in not knocking Miami's coach's play calling ability, but you do not throw that man out there against two first-class players on both levels of the field in his first game. You don't do that. So I think the Rams gonna win because of either them hitting the little brother too hard or a mistake that he's gonna make. So I'm going with the Rams.
Call me crazy. I'm going with the upset here. I'm going with the Dolphins because they had a week off. And number two, the Rams are on a short work week. They played last Monday against the Bears. They're feeling themselves right now, and rightfully so. But they had to come cross country all the way to the East Coast. They lost on the East Coast early in the year at Buffalo. They don't have any tape on tour. You can't watch it from college. College is totally different from the NFL. I think Miami has some things in store for the Rams, so I'm going with the Dolphins in an upset.
Okay.
I think Dolphins will keep it close, but I think the Rams will end up winning it, though. I know, for like you said, so they're coming cross country, short week, but I just don't see this. This could be a trap game for them, but I think the Rams will pull it out. All right, you got the Jets and the Chiefs. We'll see. Keep it quick, Chiefs.
Chiefs.
All right, you got NFC North. You got Vikings and Packers.
I hate to say it every week, but Green Bay.
Packers.
All right, there we go. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Cleveland Browns should be a good one here. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? Another tough one.
Yeah.
You know what? The pick I sent you in, Lakeena, on the sheet, I had Las Vegas marked, right? Because I believe that they would run the ball past Cleveland, and Cleveland doesn't have their running back yet like they should. But I would like to flip that. And I think Baker Mayfield is a much better quarterback without his quote-unquote number one weapon. I think them losing him makes losing Odell Beckham has made Baker Mayfield better for some reason. So, you know what? Leave it like it is, though. I'm going to go with Las Vegas, but I do think Baker Mayfield just might be back. But I'm going to stick with Las Vegas. I'm going to stay where I'm at.
I'm going with Cleveland because of their running game.
Cleveland, too, same reason.
Yeah, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to stay with Vegas because I wrote it down.
All right. All right, Titans and Bengals.
The Titans, even though Joe Burrow is the real deal.
I'm going with Tennessee as well.
High scoring affair, but I think Tennessee pulls it out in the end. Good one here in the AFC East. You got the Patriots and the Bills.
Buffalo all day. No Julian Edelman for New England.
Yep.
No running game, which means no win. I'm going with Buffalo at home.
I'm going with Buffalo also, but Cam playing for his life and his job.
Yeah, but I think Buffalo wants to make a statement. I think Buffalo is going to make a statement, so I'm going to say Buffalo too. All right, here in the AFC West, Chargers and Broncos. I'm going to pick the Chargers.
Chargers and Broncos. I picked the Chargers.
I'm going with the Chargers as well.
NFC NFC West, 49ers and the Seahawks.
Since most of America will be watching the Bears poop against the Saints, Fox is running this game at the same time yours truly will be watching it via my computer. And the 49ers, they've been scuffling along all season. This is where the buck stops. Seattle's coming off a bye, not a bye week. They're coming off a tough loss to the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday Night Football. They gave their game away. I think they learned their lesson. They're back home. They're going to take care of business against a injury-riddled 49ers team. Great win by the 49ers on the road last week, but they're running to a better team in Seattle. So I'm going with the Seahawks in a close one.
I'm going with Seattle in a blowout probably, but Seattle.
Close one, but I think Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
All right, NFC East, sorry for all the nation that has to watch this on Sunday Night Football, Cowboys and the Eagles. I will pick the Eagles because they actually care, so I'm picking the Eagles.
I'm not watching this garbage, and I'm picking the Eagles.
But we got to watch it for research purposes, but it's for first place, ain't it?
Yep, believe it or not.
Technically.
I'm going with Philadelphia because Dallas need an owner.
All right, another you can probably say a poop one here. Bucks and Giants. Bucks in a blowout.
Definitely Bucks in a blowout.
Tampa Bay.
All right, last but not least, Saints and Bears. Was that intentional, Lamont? Was that cough intentional? You gotta pick somebody, Lamont.
Yep.
I'm
Do.
back at who I'm gonna pick.
All right. He's going with New Orleans. Okay, he's going with New Orleans. All right. We forced him to into it, but yeah, he's picking the Saints. What do you think, Sid?
I just touched it. So.
He touched Drew Brees' jersey. For those of you who are watching on Kobe watches on YouTube, Lamont picked the Bucks, and he has the Drew Brees' jersey in the back, so behind him. So
The Bears jersey is right here.
okay.
But I touched one of them.
He touched his own jersey, so I'm a little surprised by that. All right, Sid. Okay, who you got, Sid?
I'm going with the Saints. Too many questions on the other side for the Chicago Bears right now. Allen Robinson, as of this broadcast, is still in a concussion protocol. You mentioned Khalil Mack with an injury. I think they'll play better, kind of, but I don't see them doing enough to beat the Saints at home. I just don't see it. So I'm going with New Orleans.
I know some pundits here in Chicago are saying, well, it's going to be in the 30s. It's going to be like 30, 40 mile-an-hour winds. I mean, look, come on. I'm sure some of these guys have probably played like in cold weather in college. You know, Drew Brees went to Purdue, so it's not like he's not used to playing in cold weather. So I think all the people who are trying to here in Chicago are trying to make this like, oh, well, you know, they're going to be freezing.
Last year, so it was cold last year.
It was cold last year, so I think people need to kind of chill with the fair weather thing. But it's going to be close, but I think the Saints will pull it out because I trust their offense more than I trust the Bears' offense. Simple as that.
Remind me to give y'all a comment about that off there.
Okay, sounds good. So those are our Week 8 picks, and let's take a quick break. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah. Whenever you say so.
All right.
Yep. Let's take a 20.
All right, absolutely. So let's, we still got a lot to talk about too. We're going to have, the wonderful WBEZ's longtime sports reporter, Cheryl Raye, Stout, talk about a change in the White Sox. I got my thoughts on that. And I'm sure all, my guys here got their thoughts as well. Also, college football. COVID has hit college football. We'll talk about that too. Also, of course, the World Series, which also was hit by COVID. So still a lot to do. We'll be right back with more Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom Halloween.
Zoom!
And we'll be right back on that note.
Welcome back to the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom style. Happy Halloween! Woo!
Zoom style.
Along with the cast of characters, Miss Lakeena McGee and Lamont Scott, I am City Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And despite that scary voice, I'm nice. I'm nice. I promise. You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Follow me at Lamont Scott on Facebook, Lamont Scott 69 on Instagram, and Lamont Scott 16 on Twitter.
And you can catch this podcast along with our other programming from War Media, aka We Are Regal Radio, by simply searching for War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you search for War on Anchor. We're also on iHeartRadio. Please download the iHeartRadio app. And after that, search for War on Anchor. You'll catch our podcast there. And we're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, that's WARR Media. You can watch us do our thing live. You can see our lovely faces.
Ta-da! Yeah, make sure you like, subscribe on the World Media YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yes, please like, share, and subscribe. Get those likes up. Get them up, get them up, get them up.
And tell your friends.
Yep.
All right, the Dodgers, this couple of days ago, the Dodgers win the World Series for the first time in 32 years since 1988. Coming back to beat the Rays in Game 6. But also, the weird stuff kind of happened after the game. During all the pregame stuff, it came out that Justin Turner had tested positive for COVID, but then actually went out there to celebrate with his team. And then, Rob Manfred had mic issues, which was very uncomfortable. So, I'll start with you, Sid. What did you think about Game 6 and also all the stuff that kind of transpired afterwards?
First of all, on to the game. Congratulations to the Dodgers. They earned it and they deserved it. They were the best team from start to finish all year. And also congratulations to Dave Roberts. We had some storylines in our last podcast, so congratulations to Dave Roberts. The monkey's finally off his back, no pun intended. So he has the World Series title underneath his belt. He doesn't have to answer about 2017 ever again in the short and long term. As far as the game is concerned, and also congratulations to Clayton Kershaw. That monkey's finally off his back as well. I think this will put him in the Hall of Fame. He's jumped a few people in front of the Lions in terms of his Hall of Fame inductions when he finally hangs it up, whenever that is. But to the actual game, Blake Snell was pitching the game of his life with the Tampa Bay Rays. This was actually Tampa's Game 7. And Kevin Cash, who I've given credit to on this program the last couple of years, because of analytics and whatever stupid, foolish methods that they go by, he decided to take Blake Snell out. If you saw Snell's reaction, he didn't like it at all. He was going. He thought that he can get out of the inning. Obviously, when he was pulled, the game came unraveled for Tampa Bay. I'm with Tim Kirchin of ESPN. He said this the following day. We all know that baseball is about numbers, and analytics is a part of the game. But if you want to rely on that solely to make up out a line of card or to make a tough decision, you might as well throw that method out the window. There's no room for thinking and for gut feeling anymore. It has to be a balance there. Right now, there's just no balance, and I don't get it.
Okay, and it's funny. I'm gonna start at the back and go back to the front to catch on what you was just saying. See, if they go by that, you might as well let a computer be the coach. Period. If they gonna go by that, I mean, for him taking that man out that game is the reason they lost. So that's why they lost. And if they're going by the numbers, so to speak, they're declining the options on Zunino and Morton going into 2021. So you tell me it's all numbers? I think they okay with making it so far and just crash the team. Boom, that's like a plane. Okay, we here, we didn't make it. Boom, crash. Let's go back, build up, get rid of the players. Don't take this player there. Get rid of this player there. So it's a lot going on over there in Tampa Bay. And like we said with the Dodgers, I thought Mookie Betts was the difference mentally, physically, and emotionally with that team making it to the World Series. And congratulations to them. They were the best, top to bottom. They deserved it. And that situation with Mr. Turner, at that point, I would have been just like the team. Come on back out here and celebrate with us. Hug us, kiss us, do all of that because you've been doing it the whole game. They didn't take them out to the 8th inning anyway. So I blame Major League Baseball, if anybody. How did you allow the game to start without finding out the results of that test would be my question if I was asking questions to somebody. How can you take a person out in the game and say, oh, you tested now? yeah, you got to come out. Well, no, I'm like them. I'm like the team, too. If anybody deserved to be out there, he do. He was there before most of us. He lost these last 3 years in the World Series, so to speak. So, yes, I would have been out there with him, celebrating, hugging him, and everything else. Because if I got it by now, because he was in the dugout throwing stuff around and high-fiving the whole day. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with him being out there because he had been with him. So, but I blame Major League Baseball, if anybody, for it, because how do you allow that game to start without getting that result? How you going to get everybody result except his? No, I don't care if you have to start the game a little later. You don't do that.
All right, first I'll start from the front end, then I'll for the back end, and then I'll go to the front end. Cash had no business taking Snell out. Snell was dealing. He was able to hold off, so some Dodgers threats, but when he took him out, you kind of knew that the Dodgers sort of kind of woke up as soon as Snell was taken out. Then they were able to score those 2 runs, and that's all they needed to sort of hang on. They had an extra Betts hit the extra insurance run to kind of give them that little cushion. So there you go. And look, I'm happy for Dave Roberts. I'm happy for Clayton Kershaw. They finally got their rings. Everything, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts gets another ring at a different team. So I feel as though that this was very well deserved for the Dodgers. And I'm happy for him. As far as the whole the Turner thing is concerned, he had no business being out there. I'm sorry. He didn't. I mean, we'll talk more about it later on, but we've got a friend of the show, WBEZ sports reporter. We had her on before. She is the legendary Miss Cheryl Raye Stout. Cheryl, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
We're doing well. We're happy to have you back on the show as always. Now, I'll set it up here. The White Sox named Tony La Russa as manager. I'll start with, before we get into our thoughts, because I have a lot of thoughts, but Cheryl, I'll let you go first. What do you think about the move?
Well, I think for a lot of people it's perplexing because everyone thought that they'd get somebody that's newer to the game as far as the last few years, having success. And I've had to think about this a lot because I do know Tony very well. I did cover him. In fact, he was my first White Sox manager I covered, and he was the only manager and head coach of any team that accepted me. He took me to all the security guards to make sure that they didn't hassle me. And I also produced his radio show. So I've known him a long time, but I do know from that time till now, there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. But I will say this, he is a very, very smart baseball man. He speaks Spanish fluently. His mother was Spanish. So, people they assume that he doesn't have, an identity with any culture. He does with the Hispanics, and he will with that clubhouse. But the fact is that he has been out of the dugout for 9 years. And so that has to be in a lot of people's minds, is he going to be a modern time manager? And I know a lot is brought up about what happened in what he said in 2016 with Colin Kaepernick. I know that that's a big bone of contention with people. With that said, remember, until this year, there was only one player that kneeled in baseball, one. And that was 2017 when Maxwell, when he kneeled and was pretty much ostracized from baseball. Nothing was done in baseball by any means until this year. So I'm not exonerating Tony, but I'm saying that he was part of everybody else, including managers, including players, and including general managers. They kind of we don't want to be part of it until what happened this year. So I want to make that clear. And the other thing is people bring up the fact about, how can he handle the Tim Anderson's type of bravado, which I think is terrific, and other players. Do you know who he managed? Ricky Henderson. If there's anybody
right, yeah, that's true.
was a little bit, different, Ricky Henderson was different, and in a good way, and he accepted. So there's a lot of things I know that people are concerned about. His age, can he connect with the players in the dugout and in the locker room? And I will have to tip my cap to Ricky Renteria, how he developed that culture, and he did a great job with that. His issue was the X's and O's, the management decisions that he made, And that is where Tony's very, very good at. So, I know I said a lot, but there's a lot there because there's so many layers to this story.
Hi, Cheryl. Nice to see you and talk to you again. I want to ask you about GM Rick Hahn. Of course, listen to snippets of his press conference from Thursday. If you really look into it and listen to what he said, the hiring of La Russa wasn't really his call. It was Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner's call. Talk to us about Rick Hahn, what a job he has done up to this point, and are his days numbered as a GM of the White Sox based on his hiring on Thursday?
It's going to be interesting because he's the one that talked Jerry Reinsdorf into doing a rebuild. That was Rick Hahn that did that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we understood that these decisions were Rick Hahn. With that said, we did find out yesterday, and of course, with all the rumblings going on, that Jerry Reinsdorf reached out to Tony La Russa first. And then Rick Hahn and Ken Williams. Don't forget, Ken Williams is part of this equation too.
Mm-hmm.
And the consensus was that they would hire Tony La Russa. I do know there's going to be some questions about that. I do know we wonder how much Rick Hahn feels usurped by this. I don't know. It's hard to tell. And in that press conference yesterday, Rick's also a lawyer, so he knows how to, he knows how to have the. So we don't know.
Lamont?
How you doing? Glad
Good.
to have you. So I was wondering, what do you think Tony La Russa can bring to that young team that they need as far as with all of the experience that he has? What is the one or two things you think he can give them that could get them to that next level that he's been to multiple times?
He handles bullpens very well. And in this day and age, that's actually probably one of the primary things you have to do. I'm talking baseball strategy right now. So with that said, that's something he could do. And he was the first one to institute the changing of the relief pitchers. That was him that started that. And so he could bring that. He's also, his acumen for baseball is really off the charts. And and I don't know if 9 years he's been in front offices. It's not like he's been sitting at home in a rocking chair at this point.
That's true.
He has been in the front office of the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, and recently with the Angels. And the one person he got to know a little bit about being an older manager handling younger talent, he was with Joe Madden last year. So he got to know Joe Madden, this past season. So there's a lot there. I think he's going to have to sit down, and I think I know we have to do Zoom and everything, but I think at some point he has to sit down with the Tim Andersons, the Lucas Giolito's, the Eloy Jimenez. He's got to sit down with all these guys because they are the cachet for this team being successful, and he has to really make sure that they're on the same page with him. And I know he can do that, because he's a very difficult person for us in the media sometimes, but he is a staunch supporter of his players. Can I give you a story about what he did?
Of course.
Go ahead.
When he was with the Oakland A's as the manager at Old Comiskey Park, a White Sox pitcher, Bobby Thigpen, beaned Terry Steinbach.
Catcher.
Knocked out the catcher at the plate. Tony went ballistic. I mean, he went nuts. He took the bat. Now, that was when there was a screen between the press box. The press box was real low, and he threw the bat up. And we're like, holy shit. And I mean, he was like, and then afterward, he was, and both dugouts came out. They were, exchanging things. And Tony goes, I'm going to put a target on your back, he says to Carlton Fisk. I'm going to put a target on your back, Isaac Ian. Then, cooler heads prevailed. They went back to the locker room. The game was finished. This was like the top of the eighth inning. Or no, it was the eighth inning. It was 5-3. There's no way, your closer's trying to hit somebody. After the game, this is pure gold. After the game, Tony's in his office and he says to the reporters, I don't want to talk about it. You know, I just don't want to talk about what happened. And Bob Glass, a real small AP writer, goes, be a man. Tony goes, be a man, be an effing man. And he goes crazy. He goes crazy. And Dave Stewart
That's
and Ricky Henderson picked up Bob Glass, picked him up, and threw him out of the locker room.
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh!
Good old days for throwing me anywhere.
Right? Oh my gosh!
That's how ferocious, but that's also how loyal the players became to him. Now I don't know, and that's a long time ago, but I hope he doesn't do anything crazy like that because I don't want to be one of those people thrown out. But I hope that he can build that loyalty, earn the respect, and listen to them on how they want to be as a player. That's really important.
We're talking to Cheryl Raye Stout of WBEZ here on Second City Sports Zoom style. You can follow her at C Raye Stout on the Twitter. Cheryl, he's 76 years old. I mean, he's only a couple years older than my mom. And my mom, when she found out about the news, she said, "Really, they're bringing Tony La Russa back? Really?" Because she remembers when he was here the first time. You know, she lived here in Chicago, her whole life. But we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we don't know what the schedule is going to be. But is there going to be a lot of travel? Do you think that's going to be an issue for him?
Well, that subject was broached to him, and he believes he can do it. We don't know. You just don't know. I mean, we got two people running for president. They're in their 70s. I mean, we have that going on, and he's somebody that's in good condition. I've never heard of Tony having any medical conditions.
Right.
And if you listen to that it was an hour press conference yesterday. I didn't detect any type of slippage, mental or cognitive issues. I mean, to me, because I've been around people, I've had my father and stuff like that had those, and you pick them up. You can tell right away. I didn't hear that, unless he could hide that. I don't know.
I just want to piggyback off your point, Cheryl, about you were talking about Tony La Russa earlier about talking to the important members of the team like Giolito and Eloy Jimenez, especially, because that's the only thing I'm really worried, in quotes, concerned about, because Major League Baseball has been presented in one of the ad campaigns from a couple of years ago with now Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr. saying, "Let the kids play." Of course, it's always generational how players celebrate. You brought up Ricky Henderson early. He was hated for it by his peers, but he was loved by the fans because of it. And the reason why I'm concerned about that with Tony La Russa is because you remember Don Mattingly, who played his entire career with the Yankees. He's current manager of the Miami Marlins now, but when he managed the Dodgers, he had a player named Yasiel Puig. He came in with the youth of exuberance, and he tried to eliminate that from his game, and that's why Puig struggled big time. People don't want to talk about that, but that's just my main concern. Well, with Tony La Russa managing this ball club, he has all the baseball knowledge in the world, no doubt. But I want to see if he's going to let those players like Tim Anderson and other players that I mentioned, let them be themselves without letting it ruin the ball club.
Yeah, but you kind of answered the question yourself. Don Mattingly was raised in the Yankee system, and that's the way they did it. Tony's been in 3 dugouts with 3 different teams: the White Sox, the Oakland A's, and also St. Louis Cardinals. And so he had a lot of different type of players, and different than Mattingly, he has allowed players to be themselves. And and the thing is, when the media will talk to Tony about a player, he will never throw them under the bus, because he never does. So I do believe it's incumbent on him to rest those fears with the players first, and then the fans. The players have to believe that he believes in them and will allow them to be what they want to be, and how they do it. So that's going to be very important. And the thing is about Tony, he constantly evolved in his career. You know, he always learns things. And I think it's going to be very important who's going to be his bench coach. I think it's going to be very important who's going to be his pitching coach. And I think that's where they have to go with somebody that can balance the age issue and also help. Your bench coach in this instance, I think is going to be very, very important. I think that bench coach has got to be the person to help, you know, bridge that gap and kind of, you know, piece this puzzle together to make sure that Tony and to be able to say no to Tony. That's going to be really important. No, you can't do that. This is how we do it, you know. And so I'm kind of curious. That to me is where the curious nature of this. Will it be somebody from the organization, or will they go outside the organization? And that bench coach would be the heir apparent to Tony. That always. So I think that's a real important piece of the puzzle. Did that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lamont?
I was a fan of Tony when he was here, and he maybe shouldn't have never left. And now that he's back, I'm wondering, do you think his reign of great managerial wins and success will continue now that he's back? Because he ain't did nothing but been wonderful since he left, and maybe he shouldn't have left in the first place. So do you think now that he's back, it's going to just continue?
It's going to be interesting. I mean, when he left, his last game as a manager was winning the World Series with the Cardinals in 2011. Can you imagine? You go off into the sunset, you get a World Series, then you go in the Hall of Fame,
Yep.
and now you're back in it. And that's going to be interesting because the thing is he winning? I mean, he lives and dies by the wins and losses. I mean, I know that for a fact. and I think he will, his resume, I know because it's difficult for anybody today to realize, but I think if you're a baseball purist, you do have to look at those wins that he had. You do have to see that he's, you know, very high on the list for managers in baseball history. And so I think that's where the players have to buy in that he could win. And he's going to have to sell it. He's going to have to tell them, look, okay, this is how I can win. This is what we have to do. And I think it would have been interesting, like during this last World Series, you know, when you see what Kevin Cash did. What did he do? He effed up because he was too much into the analytics.
Yeah.
Tony won't do that. That's not what he does. That's not, I mean, he does. In fact, again, in fact, I know the person that was his analytics guy when he was with the White Sox. He was an intern at DePaul, and then he eventually became the assistant general manager with the White Sox, and then went on to be the assistant general and the general manager of the Dodgers. It's Dan Evans. So Tony was always introduced to that type of stuff, but Tony's also into having that gut feeling about a player, about a situation, and he will not overthink it or underthink it the way Ricky Renteria did.
Yeah, you just answered my next question, Cheryl. Do you think that Tony will kind of embrace the analytics, or like you said, will he kind of mix it up, or will he go by the gut as he always done? Do you think how do you think he's going to embrace the analytics part of baseball, which has become dominant?
It is hard to, you know, I can't, because I don't know what it's definitely going to be like, but I do know that he is one of those. He's one of those people that can change with information. And I think, you know, and I think, remember what's happening in baseball right now. Scouts are being cut.
Yeah.
You know, staffs are being reduced greatly. So it's going to, I think analytics is going to be there, but I think part of analytics will not be there because you're not going to have the personnel anymore. So I think that's the quandary all of baseball is dealing with. And so Tony's going to have to really, I mean, Rick Hahn has to sit down with Tony La Russa and say, look, we want you to be able to use this stuff. Because in most cases in baseball, if you're not a top flight manager, do you know that the general managers are handing them their lineup cards? That's what's going on in baseball now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They're telling them who to play, when not to play them. And at some point, I'd like them to go back to feeling the moment.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just a little bit, you know, have your gut feeling. I mean, Joe Madden has a lot of faults, but Joe Madden had a gut feeling. when he did it.
Dusty Baker did it this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ricky Renteria, he was trying to use analytics, especially when he was having in the playoffs, when he's pulling guys out. I'm like, ooh, that was going to come back to haunt you, and it did.
Cheryl Raye Stout of WBEZ 91.5 FM sports reporter here in Chicago joins us here on Second City Sports Weekend Edition, along with Lakeena and Lamont. Scott, I am Sidney Brown. As we discussed the hiring of Tony La Russa for the Chicago White Sox, Cheryl, you also are a historian as well.
Uh-oh.
And you were, not to out-age you anything,
Yeah, I said no.
you like me, we're 29 years old.
Yeah, I said she's only 29, folks.
But you mentioned you were working on the flagship station at the time when Tony La Russa was managing the White Sox. I tweeted out a picture yesterday. I'm sure you remember this as well. Now Hall of Fame broadcaster Hawk Harrelson, he was the GM back then. He had this famous poster, which I tweeted out yesterday. The Hawk wants you as the Sox spirit, and I said it in my tweet that he gave La Russa his walking papers in the middle of that '86 season. From your vantage point, Cheryl, Hawk Harrelson, by the way, he was on another radio station in town yesterday. Of course, he said he would keep that between himself and Tony. From your vantage point, what caused the breakdown between La Russa and Harrelson, and what were the issues going on from your vantage point, what ultimately led to La Russa's firing?
Ooh, there was a whole lot. When Roland Heeman was fired, and Jerry Reinsdorf made probably the biggest blunder, well, one of his biggest blunders, was hiring Hawk Harrelson for that job. And Hawk completely decimated the minor league system.
Yep.
He brought in Elvin Dark to be the head of minor leagues, and look his information up. Google him if you want to find out an insanity that was. He had, and I love him dearly, Dick Ellen was the hitting coach.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
There was all sorts of, hirings and firings and stuff like that from the top down. He made him put Carlton Fisk in left field.
Ooh. Oh, okay.
So, I mean,
oh my gosh.
A lot of people don't remember some of this stuff. Here's something else he did. I'll never forget this. Hawk didn't, when he fired him, eventually, he actually tried to fire him weeks before. We had a reporter that went to the Yankees hotel and found Billy Martin at the bar, because we had a little birdie say something's going on with Billy Martin and the White Sox. And Billy Martin admitted that Hawk Harrelson had already talked to him about taking over the job for Tony La Russa. So Tony was actually fired twice that year. Not once, but twice.
Oh my gosh.
So let's just say there was a lot of acrimony. They didn't get along at all. I mean, it was totally chaotic. And then he fires Tony, hires Jim Fregosi, and then at the trading deadline, he trades Bobby Bonilla to Pittsburgh for Jose De Leon. I got to know Bobby very well that year, and Bobby had a personal issue that was going on. I won't say what it is. If he ever wants to say it at some point, but he confided in me what happened, did not tell management, kind of went into a funk. And then he gets traded. And then what happens, he becomes an all-star player.
Yep.
Hawk Harrelson, at every turn, it was insane. And at the point that after he made that trade, every day I call up Hawk to try to talk to him, like to do an interview. Every day I called up the secretary, who I love her dearly. I'd say, can I talk to Hawk? Well, he's not here. When will he be back? I don't think he's going to be back today. I said, is he golfing? Every day for the rest of the season.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then when he retired, Hawk retired, he said, yeah, it was such a hard year. And I'm like, you were golfing for the last 2 freaking months.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was not a good partnership at all. None. And he knew what the end result was going to be. But he decimated the minor league system pretty well.
And Bobby Bonilla is still getting paid to this day.
Yeah.
$1 million every July 4th.
Every July 4th. Yep.
he'll be wearing Mets gear for the rest of his life. I'm
Oh,
sure he's
yeah.
got a tattoo somewhere.
Oh, well, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. Go ahead,
And his
Lamont.
children and his grandchildren.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Go ahead, Lamont.
I was saying, now that we've made this decision, and like I say, I wasn't that upset with the decision because of all he's done. What's the one thing you think he's gonna do to surprise all the naysayers and the ones that don't believe that he still has it and that he's too old to do it? What do you think he's gonna do to surprise them all?
I think he'll win. I think he'll win. I think, I think you know, he has to. You know, it could be a one and done for him if he doesn't win. But we do have to remember we don't know about
Right.
the season. We
Yeah.
don't know when things will be normal, because it ain't normal for me. I don't think, is it normal for any of you guys?
Nope.
No, no, ma'am. No,
You
ma'am.
get a feeling like it's going to happen anytime soon?
Doubtful.
Nope.
Doubt it.
So with that said, until we know when the season starts and when he, you know, and I think this is really hard to be changing any type of leadership in any type of role for anything, sports, you know, business, when you change leadership, because we're doing everything by Zoom. And it's great you guys could do a show, but in baseball and football and hockey and basketball, you got to see people, you got to talk to them, you got to read their body language, you got to be able to, you know, have private conversations, you know, and so I think winning's got to be it, Lamont, to really answer quickly. He has to win, and I think he can win. And I think Rick Hahn has to support him with some more free agents. I think they got to get themselves, I think you don't know what's going to happen with some of these players that were young and were, you know, I think some of them were rushed along, and it worked out, especially with the bullpen. But we don't know about Dylan Cease. We don't know about Dane Dunning. And the real key is Michael Kopech. We have no idea. Can you imagine if he was okay to be able to play this year? They could have won if he was, you know. So that's a long answer to your short question. Win.
do you think it's going to be an issue to kind of sign these free agents to like, you know, big contracts, considering, you know, COVID and everything going on, and you know, I'm sure the Cubs probably going to be spending much. I'm sure none of the teams are going to be spending too much. What do you think about that?
I think it's going to be interesting. I think this is where, and that's why Jerry, being 84 years old and knowing that, you know, the sand is running out of the glass.
Oh yeah.
I think he may allow them to spend some money on some guys. He did before this season, you know, and I think he may look at, you know, I think Tony's going to analyze the team, and I think Rick Hahn is going to say, look, this is what we need, and he has to go get it. And you know, let's say they could sign a Trevor Bauer.
Yes.
That could put him over the top.
Yeah, totally.
They need a starting pitcher. They need a right fielder. They have to decide the DH. And I wish they could re-sign James McCann. James McCann is the glue to that role. And that's just devastating if they can't re-sign him. And I know it's hard to have two players make that much money, and it's hard to have two starting catchers, and that, you know, but boy, he's good.
Yeah.
Player manager. I always thought he could have been a player manager for the White Sox. It's just me.
You know what? I'll tell you, his first year, when we were able to be at the park, it was midway through the season, and I'm in the elevator with Carlton Fisk, who I know very well. And I said, Carlton, what do you think of James McCann? He goes, I love him. Carlton doesn't like people. He doesn't like catchers. He doesn't like people.
I believe it.
and he said, I love him. And he started telling me why, you know, and his skills and what he does, and as a former catcher, he could see the things he does. And afterward, I was able to tell. I said, James, I met somebody they hadn't met, and I said, there's somebody that I think you should know that is a fan of yours. And I told him, and he almost fell over. It was, you know, it's kind of neat that you be able, you know. I go, Carlton Fisk really likes what you do, and he goes, he goes, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And it was like, Oh, I felt like a little fairy, I'm giving fairy dust to somebody.
Oh, I love it.
They to sign him, and if they can't use him as that extra DH if need be. But I think they need to find a way to keep him there and do what they need to do.
Remember who was catching him who was catching Lucas Giolito for the no-hitter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It was him.
it was McCann. Yep.
Who was catching opening day with Lucas Giolito when he had trouble?
McCann. Yep.
No, it wasn't McCann.
Oh,
Opening day when it was not
Rendon.
McCann.
Oh, no. Yep.
Grandal. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think Grandal grew into it, but I mean, when you have a pitcher and your ace pitcher with your catcher on board together.
Oh, yeah.
We saw that with John Lester and David Ross.
Yep.
Sometimes it just, they're so in sync.
That's why I think they should bring him as the DH. He can be that extra DH, and when he's not DH and he can catch, but that glue will still be there. And it's going to cost a lot to do, but we took a chance on Mazzara, so I figure we should spend that little money.
How about Encarnacion?
I wish they could keep him, but hard to do.
You know what? I think with him, he needed the full season. We
Yeah.
don't know what he can do. I think the short season hurt him quite a bit, but I wouldn't retain him if I were the White Sox, not at all. And the option is a team option.
Right, a few more minutes with Cheryl, Raye, Stout here on Second City Sports Zoom style. Lamont, what's your next question for her?
No, I was just following up with the McCann thing. I think if I were to bring anyone back, I would try to bring him back. But other than trying to keep a McCann and getting a Keuchel, is it anything else out there you think Tony needs that could get him over that hump that you see right now that they can go and get?
Well, they got to retain Alex Calame. That's another guy they have to retain. It's hard to find closers, although they have some young guys that could be closer. But I think you got to retain him, and James McCann would be great. But I do think a starting pitcher is you have to go out and get one. You hit pay dirt when you signed Dallas Keuchel. Absolute pay dirt. The only problem was he had some back issues and stuff like that, and unfortunately he had the rough game too. But if you had a solid 3, you go into the postseason, you got to have 1, 2, and 3. And I think that, going with these bullpen sessions, oh God, it's a crapshoot because you got to keep, and if they keep that rule, we have to keep on the mound for 3 batters unless they're closing out an inning. You're stuck. You're stuck. So I think a starting pitcher, preferably a left-hander, but hey, if it's Trevor Bauer, you try for Trevor Bauer. You shoot for the moon at this point.
What about Stroman? Do you think they got a chance at him?
I think they could, but people are saying, "Oh, Stroman's not going to be happy with Tony La Russa." We don't know. Tony's going to have to be the one he's going to have to be there part of the recruiting of anybody.
Yeah.
It can't be Rick Hahn and Ken Williams only. It has to be Tony has to be there, and he has to be able to say the things that a free agent wants to hear and execute it. It can't be just words. He's got to execute that.
Lamont?
No, I was thinking while we was mentioning pitchers, you saying the left-hander, maybe even getting Quintana back over there as that third person and pulling him from the north side and getting him back over there to the White Sox to maybe be that third person.
That's a possibility. I mean, he wouldn't cost a lot of money at this point because, this was a very hard year for him. I mean, when he cut his thumb on that wine glass, that really set him back. And then he had other issues because we don't know with all the soft tissue issues that people were having and, what they were going through. So I don't know what his value is at this point, but that's a good thought. I mean, the thing is, Gio Gonzalez was not the answer for them, that they thought he would be like a 5th starter of that. So I think Quintana, I think he would be number 3. I think he'd be further down on the rotation.
Let's talk a little Bears for a second here, Cheryl. They got a big game tonight against the Saints. Do you think they can sort of right the ship with the Saints in these next couple of games coming up against tougher competition?
No.
Oh, okay.
She's so
Okay, as of right now,
Yeah.
their injury situation is a little rough. Ellen Robinson having a concussion makes it rough. So you're going to have to rely on Darnell Mooney to be your go-to guy. And I think he's terrific. I think the fact that where they got him in the draft and how he's performed is terrific. But I think the offensive line is offensive. I think Cody Whitehair, he's got a calf injury. You are using, the thing is, James Daniels was actually starting to improve in his position, and his injury is much more telling about that offensive line than people realize. So you're using a former defensive lineman as a guard, and that's not working out in Rasheed Coward. So that's the real concern is the fact that you couldn't score a touchdown last week. Your offense, you had to rely on your defense. Your defense kind of got gashed up, and I think the problem is they were exhausted. The field position was terrible. You have to replace Ted Ginn Jr. as your punt returner. Ted Ginn Jr. And at this point in his career, I don't think he wanted to be back there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think?
No, he didn't look comfortable at all.
He's like, okay, I have an allergy, and it's the football coming at me from a punt.
Exactly. It's crazy. I mean, I look, we've been telling people as we were trying to get Sid's connection to get going, but we've been telling people, Cheryl, for the last few weeks that this team is this is not a 5-2 team. We've been saying it for months. Do you think they're a 5-2?
I think that they had a lot of, we have to remember there was no preseason. So anything that happened the first 4 weeks, I kind of go, it's kind of preseason-ish. So those wins were kind of preseason-ish in my view. They may sound weird, but we don't know how good the opponent was that they were facing. Like what type of training camp were they having? What type of preseason would they have had? So I think the Bears caught luck, and the fact that they had to come back in all those wins, that doesn't bode well. And your fact that your offense still didn't move the ball, especially on the ground. If you can't run the ball, all the defense has to do is pin back their ears and go, okay, meat, quarterback, I'm hungry, I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question for you next. Do you think the play calling of Matt Nagy is the reason the run game is suffering, or is it mostly offensive line, or is this his play calling? I mean, he seems to call some interesting plays at some interesting times in that run game.
I think you're right. I think the play calling is now in question. We've talked to Matt Nagy this week, and he is not talking about giving that up. But I think at some point he may have to, because it's not working, and the arrow points at him. No, there's nobody else but him. But some of these, that fourth and 1 with Cordell Patterson.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Exactly.
Really?
He got 3 yards, get 1 yard. Yeah, that's not.
It does. I don't know if they can solve that problem, because Tariq Cohen, I mean, he was not a great running back, but he's a nice specialty type player where you could do some trick stuff with him. And I think that hurt them. They didn't have a lot of major injuries except this past week, but before that, the 2 injuries to Daniels and to Cohen, I think, hurt them more than they even realized it would happen.
Do you think Trubisky makes an appearance? I mean, there are fans out there saying those Trubisky, truthers are coming in.
I thought that was going to happen. It would have happened last Monday. I thought that, if all else fails, it would happen this Monday. But I think it would take an injury to Nick Foles in order to see Trubisky at this point. I wouldn't be surprised. He could be dealt by Tuesday. Could. If a team's looking for somebody, I mean, you never know. If you get an offensive lineman, would you trade him?
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's got no contract at the end of the year.
Yep. And there are a couple of guys out there too, so you never know.
And other offensive coordinators, other head coaches always think they could fix a problem.
Yep.
Their egos are enormous.
And if Matt Nagy's play calling has been the problem, that may have been one of Mitch's biggest problems. Also, he couldn't call the plays that fit Mitch's skill set. So that may be one of the reasons why Mitch is in such a bad place. Also, so I've been questioning him for a while myself.
Look at Adam Shaheen. He gets an
Okay.
extension in
Okay.
Miami. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, so if other teams can take your cast-offs and make them into a player, then you have to wonder. And I think if anybody's on the hook at all this year, it's Ryan Pace, the general manager. No doubt. Because he's the one, they're together. Pace and Nagy are together, but he's the one that thought that offensive line was good.
I mean, look at Leonard Floyd. I mean, you don't think he had that Monday night's game circled on his calendar? Come on now.
Well, Leonard Floyd is I think he's a cast off too that ended up in the right situation. But they were trying to make him do something that he wasn't capable of doing, and so now he's in the system that is utilizing him in the right way. And I think him with Aaron Donald, that's a nice one too. It just didn't work here.
As got said back.
Yeah, I am back.
Hey, Sid.
The beauty and the tragic of technology, but as we always do, we always make it our way to push through. Since they started on the headache of the Bears, Cheryl, I'll continue to pile on. As we call it here, this weekend's game against the Bears, of course, most of the country will be watching the game via Fox. We call it hashtag Bears poop. Of course, that's what we saw on Monday night. It might be another poop game, especially after what happened last year against the Saints with no Drew Brees and no Alvin Kamara. Of course, both those players are back for the game this year. After last year's game, we saw a couple of Bears players not treat the media and the fans so well. Of course, we saw the train go off the rails because they couldn't handle the success from the previous year in 2018 when they won the NFC North. Do you kind of see the same thing happening, Cheryl? Heaven forbid they lose on Sunday, especially if they get blown out again. Do you see the train coming off the rails once again? Because they have a much easier schedule this year than last year, plus with that extra wild card spot to try to get into the playoffs. Should the Bears get dominated again, do you see the train coming off the rails?
I think these next 3 games, they could end up being 5-5 going into their break. I do. I think they could lose these next 3 games and end up going into their bye week, at 500. So, yeah, it could happen. But they don't have any fans that can say anything to them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
up on the road. On the road.
What it was the weirdest things was, and I was just looking at something on my phone, is that they had a video tribute to Gale Sayers on that board that nobody saw but the media and people that, and the few people that were on the sidelines. I'm going, why would you do that and not even have a patch on the jerseys of the players?
That.
Wow.
I mean,
That's
that was
the right thing.
But the thing is, this team, if they win on Sunday, if they win today, okay, hats off to them. But it would be planned, quite the execution, and it's going to be very, very windy and cold, and that means that you're going to have to run the ball. And when it's windy and cold, and you can't run the ball, and you have a punt returner that doesn't like returning punts, what type of field position are you going to have?
Insane. Yeah, insane. A few more minutes with Cheryl Raye Stout of WBEZ here on Second City Sports Zoom style. Cheryl, I mean, I don't know what to say about this Bears team. Sid will tell you. Sid will be the first to tell you that I've been bullish on this Bears team. I've told you a couple of weeks ago. Do you think they finish strong, or do you think they somehow can make a run at the division, or maybe even make the playoffs? In general.
I think these next 3 games will tell you everything about this team, because at this point of the season, except for the trade deadline is coming up on Tuesday, you can't make any adjustments. There's nothing you can do. Your personnel is there. unless you have a rookie that you haven't played, or somebody that maybe you that gets cut from another team. There's not much you can do with your personnel, and that's the problem for them that they have to face. So okay, if you can't change the personnel, you have to change your schemes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like people are going, why is Demetrius Harris in the game? It's because they need him because the offensive line is so bad.
Yep.
Cole Kmet should be getting a lot more targets than he's getting. That kid can flat out play, but he still doesn't have all the nuances he needs to be a starter or be in there as much as he can. And that's where this no preseason, having the short training camp, that really is affecting a lot of teams, and it's affecting the Bears probably a lot more than we thought would until now.
Last question from me, Cheryl. The Chicago Bulls, of course, the NBA season, rumor has it it might start on December 22nd around Christmas time. The players are saying as of today that they want to start, if you really want to read it to LeBron James and the big superstars, they want to start on Martin Luther King Day in 2021 in January. When do you think that the NBA season will start? And do you think we'll have some fans in these arenas at least to start off the year until at least the springtime where the NBA can perhaps get a full house of fans for their fans to watch these games?
So you mentioned December 22nd, which is what the league wants. You mentioned January, which is what LeBron wants. And one thing I could say about those two entities, LeBron, and he represents the players, is that they do have a way of meeting in the middle. They do have a way of figuring things out. And I think the virus, because it's so rampant right now, that's going to make the call on this. Nothing can be planned at the end of this year. Nothing can be planned at the beginning of next year. And I think that they want, because they lost 10% of their finances was lost this year. That's an awful lot of money for them. They're trying to figure out, okay, we still have to do a shortened season. And they do believe they've always wanted to start the season on Christmas Day. That's always been their, because they realized at that point, the NFL season is down to the playoffs. Everyone knows what the playoff teams are, and then they can kind of take, they can jump from there. But I don't think it's going to start in December. I don't think it's going to start in January. I think it's going to be beyond that at this point, because I think COVID is going to decide everything in sports. I know that's simplistic for me to say, but that's the way it seems.
You got anything else, Lamont?
Yes, and with us having you on those Bulls, I was going to switch it to the Bulls also. With that fourth pick and them having an opportunity to maybe even trade up a pick and move to the number 2 spot in that Golden State spot, who really is in a position where they don't need to pick that number 2 pick this year. You think that they will be that aggressive going up and trying to get a person, or will they sit at 4 and take like the foreign player that they've been looking at to come over?
The kid from Israel?
Yes.
One thing in trying to research Arturas is, I don't think he trades up. I think he likes to trade down. I think he the way he is scouted. Again, this has been such a strange year because you can't scout the way you normally have scouted.
Right.
But I think he could trade down too, because he finds second round picks better than anybody. So I wouldn't. If they trade up, yeah, they could. But I think he is skilled enough and knowledgeable enough that he could almost do anything. And I think he'll probably be ending up on the right side of it.
All right. There is Cheryl Raye Stout of WBEZ 91.5 FM in Chicago. She's their sports reporter, and we call her our Chicago sports historian here on the show. She and I are the same age at 29. Nothing you can do about it. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us. And enjoy that Bears poop, as we call it, against the Saints on Sunday. Hope the Bears will win and hopefully turn this thing around. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us historical insights about Tony La Russa and the White Sox. So and keep up the great work, and let's do this again soon.
Thank you. I had fun as usual.
Thank you, Cheryl. You guys stay safe.
All right. There was Cheryl Raye Stout once again of WBEZ 91.5 FM Chicago. She's their sports reporter. She does a great job. And follow her on Twitter at C Raye Stout. That's the letter C Raye. That's RAYE Stout STOUT on the Twitter. I know we're running out of time, guys, but just real quick, Trevor Lawrence, as we switch over to college football, I know you have the schedule in front of you, Lakeena.
Yes.
But I just want to point out that Trevor Lawrence has tested positive for COVID-19. He is starting his quarantine process as we speak. Clemson plays against Boston College this weekend. Even if he was in there, they would have blown them out anyway by 30 points. He would have been sent by halftime. Of course, as we talked about the week, I think it was last week, Lakeena.
Yeah.
They have a big game coming up at Notre Dame next Saturday. Call me college football common sense stupid, but there's no way he's missing that game next week against Notre Dame. That's a whole lot of money. I think that's a home game for Notre Dame, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, NBC will not be losing that money. The powers to be is going to make damn sure he's going to play in that game. The final score will not matter. They're going to make sure he's going to play in that game, and the eyeballs will be watching.
Yeah, they not going to need him. They got a 4-star backup. They're not going to need him. And after this game Saturday, they're going to see that they're not going to need him, and they can rest him because they do have a 4-star backup.
They do, yeah.
And he's going to be ready to go. I mean, they talking about that man as a mix between one of the names they threw in I didn't really like, but they talking Roethlisberger and Michael Vick combined. They mentioned Jamarcus Russell. The college Jamarcus Russell.
I'm about to say, I hope not Oakland. I'm about to say not Oakland Jamarcus Russell. I hope not.
Not Oakland. All he did at Oakland was barbecue. So, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't think they're gonna miss him. And Notre Dame need to blow out who they got? Georgia Tech, I think.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, they need to blow them out. And then you got that the big noon game with Michigan State. They're gonna have a good game simply because they don't like each other.
You thought the records out there with those two play.
I'm looking at I'm wondering, is Alabama gonna beat Mississippi State by the 24 points, or will
the
Mississippi
under?
State learn how to have a quarterback again and they beat Alabama? This is the type of season that it's been in college football. So if Alabama lose, I wouldn't be that surprised, but I doubt it very seriously. I just don't think Alabama will cover that 24.
You want to call that right now? You want to make an official bet on this show?
I got one bet.
Alabama covering?
Didn't
Take
I
the
bet
cover?
this week already?
Well, I'm looking forward to Ohio State and Penn State. I know Penn State's probably not going to be in a very good mood after letting that game against Indiana slip away. There won't be any. I don't think there's going to be any crowds there at Happy Valley, but I think it should be a good one over there. And I think Ohio State will probably have a test against Penn State. I think could be a high-scoring game.
Yes.
Now,
Penn State could be 0-2 before we look at it on Monday. So that's really a tough way to start off a shortened season. But Ohio State's been playing very well. Of course, they beat Nebraska last week in a home opener. I think it's going to be kind of close, but I think Ohio State will find a way to pull it out at the end.
Should be interesting. And what about Wisconsin? Look what's happening in Wisconsin. They have the Graham Metz, who we talked about on Monday's show, tested positive for COVID. Turns out head coach Paul Chris is now tested positive. There are about 10 other people, players and personnel tested positive. They had to cancel the game against Nebraska. Big Ten will let Nebraska play Chattanooga to make up for that game. So everything's going all haywire in the Big Ten. Welcome to the party, Big Ten. You guys wanted to come back, so.
But you know what? Even with all of that, I think at the end of the year, they're not going to penalize the teams like they were saying. As long as you qualify with 3 games, I think it is, you can play in the championship. So I think they'll be that in the end. I think you might see a championship where you got a 6-team team playing against a 4-game team against a 6-game team for the championship. I think you may see that in the Big Ten at the end of the year.
And also, too, I think the MAC is returning this weekend for a short 6-game conference season. I think the Pac-12 is next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So I think most of these big-time conferences will be getting going here. So we'll have a true college season. So I want to I don't have, like I said, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I want to see how Northwestern does in their game this week. I know they blew out Maryland in their home opener last week. Of course, Illinois got smashed by Wisconsin and that COVID quarterback. So
Yeah.
I want to see how they respond this week.
That's
I think
what
they have a home opener this week.
That's what happened. They hit the quarterback. That's why they lost that game.
They play Iowa. They're at Iowa, Sid.
Oh, they got to
Ooh.
win this week. Oh, it's on. They're
No,
gonna
Iowa's kind of, they're going through a lot with, with not really COVID, but like all this has been going on. You can Google it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Illinois would be 1-1. And looking at that Big Ten title, I told you only need 4 wins to qualify. They might be in the championship.
Okay, we got you on record, Lamont. So we'll see what happens on Saturday.
4 wins to qualify for the Big Ten title game. They might be in that game.
On that note, you can follow me at Lakeena on Twitter and Lakeena_McGee on the Instagram.
You can follow me at Lamont Scott on Facebook, Lamont Scott 69 on Instagram, and Lamont Scott on Twitter.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. And you can listen to this podcast, Second City Sports, which is part of the War Media Network. That's We Are Regal Radio and weareregalradio.com. You can search for War on Anchor on your podcast platforms. That's SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you search for War on Anchor. And also, we're on iHeartRadio. Please download that iHeartRadio app. When you do, type in your search engine box War on Anchor. You can access our programming via podcast from there. And also, we are on YouTube at War Media. Once again, that's War Media, WARR Media. Like, comment, share, subscribe to our channel. Share the videos, comment on them as well. And make sure you smash that like button. Get those likes up. Get them up, get them up, get them up.
And tell your friends. All right.
Yes.
Also, and I'd also like to thank the wonderful WBEZ Cheryl, Raye, Stout for joining us. We can talk to her all day. We actually have done that before. We can see you actually did talk to her all day.
Yeah, that was our last time we had her on there. That was the Last Dance recap, aka the cheat sheet. So if you missed that, please go back to War on Anchor. You can search for that episode right there.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll have this episode up soon. All right, so stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands, wear your mask properly, keep your distance, and if you haven't already, vote. It's important.
Vote.
Yes.
Vote. You can vote at the United Center.
Yes, you can. Super site. Yep. Well, election day, absolutely. So you guys have no excuses now. So you can early vote till the 2nd here in Illinois. You can, like Lamont said, you can vote at the UC on election day. So you guys have no excuses, folks. All right, so for the guys, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe, guys.
Peace.
Bears poop. Till next time.